rumor has it that Bobby Lashley and MVP are on their way out from the WWE. But should they be headed to AEW? Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm Rob, the Wrestling Old Head. Seems to be that a lot of rumor and innuendo placed from a tweet from PWN on X or whatever it's called. And they were talking about Bobby Lashley and MVP and Tamina Snuka being removed from the internal roster for the WWE. Mike Johnson reported that that's not true, but it seems that there might be some sort of contract expiry going on with Bobby Lashley and MVP. MVP has been pretty open and blunt about some of his transgressions with the WWE, and more specifically from Triple H in the last few weeks. It's been very interesting to hear. So it looks like we might be seeing MVP and Bobby Lashley parting ways with the WWE. MVP has quite the history in professional wrestling. I think he's a great wrestler. I think he's great on the mic. I really liked what they were doing with the Hurt Business with Bobby Lashley, Cedric Alexander, and Shelton Benjamin. And I thought that the pieces were getting put together in a really interesting way, and it was very unfortunate that this was all going down during the pandemic, because I really think they could have struck gold with that type of a program for those guys. And now I see a lot of people saying that they think that Bobby Lashley and MVP should be going and reforming like a Hurt Business, if you will, in the AEW. And if they do, I hope it works out, but I must be honest in saying that to me it seems that those type of performers, and I mean this in MVP and Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, who would all seemingly be available for some sort of a reunion, they don't seem to fit with the mind of Tony Khan. I've done a video on this before, and I will reiterate, Tony Khan's dream roster, in my opinion, are guys like Ricochet, Will Ospreay, Swerve Strickland, Orange Cassidy, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Motor City Machine Guns, which I'm surprised he didn't get those guys. Those type of performers. The big guys, he's not a big fan of those guys. And I think because they were pushed so hard in the 80s and in the 90s in American professional wrestling, and the little guys never really got a chance, I'm sure Tony Khan is trying to go, I'm the antithesis of that moment, of that time period. I do not want to be associated with the Vince McMahon type of a push for the big guys. So he lets the smaller guys, the Davids, if you will, beat the Goliaths. But there's no build-up for these beatdowns. These Goliaths are built up behind the scenes, and then Davids beat them in front of national television, and no one cares. And then very few people even buy into it, if I may be frank, at least the ones that I'm seeing. So if they bring in a Bobby Lashley, they have to do it a certain way. Now, personally, I would not put Bobby Lashley in AEW. If I were Bobby Lashley, I would go to MLW, Major League Wrestling. I think he would be an immediate star. He could really tear things up in MLW. I like Court Bauer. I like the type of format he's doing with MLW. I know they're smaller, and I know they don't have as much coverage as, like, say, even Game Changer Wrestling would, or TNA. Obviously, TNA would be like the prime choice, but it depends on the way that he's leaving WWE because of their deal that they have with one another, WWE and TNA. I mean, you would really have to wonder if Bobby Lashley goes to TNA, then that means that there must have been some kind of an amicable, like, shaking of the hands and parting ways, and then hopefully. But with MVP, it just doesn't seem like they're on the same page. MVP is coming across a little upset at the way that things were handled in the WWE. So I don't know if they're leaving on good terms is what I'm getting at. And if MVP and Bobby Lashley are to be a package deal, then you would wonder if TNA would suit them. If not, then I would go with MLW. The only reason why I say AEW is probably not the best option for them as a group is from what I just said about the big guys, but also MVP and Chris Jericho have been getting into it for probably about half a decade backstage and, in hotel rooms. It's been pretty legitimate, and I don't know if the AEW locker room can handle another brawl in, another scenario where two guys don't get along and they're having to share the same space with one another the way that they would have to in AEW, even if it was just for a day or two out of the week. So I'm not confident in Tony Khan or the staff of AEW to ease the tension that would be there unless they have a meeting somehow and talk about this before the eventual signing, which I believe Jericho's good at. Jericho will talk to, there were rumors that he talked to CM Punk when CM Punk was allowed back after the initial brawl in. So I believe Chris Jericho will play game. He'll play ball, if you will. He'll play ball, and as far as making money goes, he'll be like, hey, if this is going to work, this is going to work, So it could work. And if that were to happen, I'm going to tell you how I would debut a Bobby Lashley, and it would involve Swerve Strickland. So I can envision Swerve trying to do a deal to retain his AEW World Championship. He does a deal with MVP. The deal is MVP will allow Swerve to retain his World Championship if Swerve then retains his services, but he has to get rid of Prince Nana. So Swerve says, I'll do it, behind Prince Nana's back, retains the World Championship, and then says, you know what? I'm not letting Prince go, and I don't need your services, but thank you for all your help. And MVP is not happy with that. That's when he sends in Bobby Lashley as the mercenary, as the hitman, as the bounty hunter to take him out. I think that gives him a story there, right? And I'd love to see a matchup between Bobby Lashley and Swerve Strickland there. And then I think you have a lot to play with because you have MVP as kind of like this Dawn character. And you can even you can go kind of like a Lucha Underground filmed sort of thing with a lot of his being at the high rise of a building and kind of the kingpin of and running an operation. Shelton Benjamin can then come in. So you got Swerve against those two. You can even bring Brian Cage and put him with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, which I think would really work as far as a muscle for MVP's group and their Hurt Business, because if you're going to reform Hurt Business, I think you need a younger guy because, you got Bobby Lashley, who's about 49. You got Shelton Benjamin, who's in his 50s. MVP is in his late 30s, early 40s, somewhere around there. I'm not sure. So, they're up there in age. You want a kind of a young guy, which I don't even know if Brian Cage is that young, but you understand what I'm saying. You need somebody like a fresh blood type of a guy to get in there. If you really, really want to go there with the Hurt Business being reformed, I would say Roosh would be a good one because he's already wearing a suit and he's a badass. He beats ass, and Roosh, I think, would work because Roosh is believable as a tough guy, but there's a language barrier there. So MVP would be able to help that out and do a lot of the talking for Roosh. And you can believe that Roosh is intimidating, and he already wears the suits. And he could stand side by side with Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, and he won't look as big, but he'd look like the little. I was gonna say something. He would look like the tough little dog. You know what I mean? Tough little dog. You know what I'm trying to say. So I think it would work, On the other hand, I looked at Injay Nduka. I think I'm saying that right. EJ Nduka, the judge. He was in MLW for a while, former football player. He signed with MLW. And I think he was in the WWE Performance Center for a while, too. I think I actually had him in NXT. Now he's back in the independents, and he's in AEW right now. And I think he would be cool for this new Hurt Business if they're going to go that route with Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, MVP. You put somebody like the Judge there. You put somebody like Big Bill there. I think Big Bill would be really good there. But honestly, I'm fantasy booking this whole thing because honestly, I'm not buying it. I really don't feel that AEW needs Bobby Lashley or Shelton Benjamin right now. But hilarious enough, because this guy kind of like was against the idea of bringing Shelton Benjamin in, but I would really like to see Max Caster join up with them, to be honest with you, because MVP could promise Max Caster a illustrious rap career and being successful as an entertainer, and then he can break up with Anthony Bowens and Billy Gunn, and Billy Gunn, you can believe, would be, formidable against MVP on the mic, and Bowens he's a fiery baby face. I mean, I could just totally see him as a face, right? Like as the face in peril. He's a really, really believable face there, and Max Caster's a real believable asshole. So you can position Max Caster with his heavies, with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley and MVP, and then he can wrap down. I don't know. I think it would work, but there's got to be a lot of moving pieces, and I would still like to see Bobby Lashley and Swerve Strickland, though. I know that much. To see Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, Swerve Strickland all over the ring, and Swerve mount a comeback, it would be nice to see. And I hope we do get to see that match. For a championship, I think that would be huge. For AEW, for Bobby Lashley, and really, really for Swerve Strickland. So I would hope that they go that route. But if you really ask me, my heart is in that Bobby Lashley should be in MLW or TNA or even the NWA. As weird as that sounds, it even hurt coming out of my mouth, guys. I know you're screaming at me right now. Dude, what the fuck? I know, I get it. I understand. But Bobby Lashley in AEW, I just don't know if it'll do him any favors unless they do what I just mentioned and go the fantasy booking route and stick a young guy in with Shelton Benjamin, Bobby Lashley, and MVP, or have MVP do a deal with Swerve and Swerve him, and then now they're in a feud. That's what I think. But what do you guys think in the comments? Let me know. Where do you think Bobby Lashley is going to land if and when he departs from the WWE? Is MVP coming along as a package deal? Is MVP going to get back in the ring? Is he going to be wrestling again, or is he just going to be a manager? You guys let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out. Hit the notifications bell to be up to date on all the information that I'm going to be bringing to you as far as my opinions on the pro wrestling product, my recaps from the past, the present, and even the future, you guys. As always, wrestling fans, try and stay united. Stay tuned for more.